back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Chandna.
And I'm Raisha Sehgal. On the show today, US President Joe Biden and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu held a 30-minute phone conversation after almost 7 weeks. Well, the conversation comes at a time as Israel expands its Lebanon ground incursion and mulls how to respond to Iran's recent ballistic missile attack. We'll be decoding that conversation between Bibi and Biden on the show today.
Also on World DNA today, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will visit London for talks with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Meanwhile, UK military said, well, that its forces struck a base in southern Russia's Krasnodar region, storing Shahid drones. Of course, that's the Ukrainian military, and all that and a lot more right here on World DNA. Let's get started with the headlines.
Indian industrialist and philanthropist Ratan Tata passes away at 86. Chairman Emeritus of Tata Group Ratan Tata died after being admitted in an intensive care unit for the past few days. Condolences pour in from India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi and other top leaders.
Hurricane Milton slams U.S. state of Florida as an extremely dangerous Category 3 storm, triggering extreme winds and flash floods.
US President Joe Biden tells Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to minimize harm to civilians in Lebanon during a widely anticipated phone call. White House says Israel must avoid any Gaza-like military action in Lebanon.
Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump rules out second presidential debate with Democratic candidate and nominee Kamala Harris.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky warns that prolonging the war in Ukraine allows Russia to exhaust Ukraine as much as possible as he meets with Balkan leaders in Croatia in the hope of securing further military aid.
Southeast Asian leaders to hold talks at ASEAN summit with Chinese Premier Li Qiang with the disputed South China Sea on the agenda. Indian Prime Minister to also join the summit.
Greece international George Baldock found dead in the swimming pool of his house in Athens. The cause of death remains unknown at the moment.
As Israel prepares a response to Iran's last week's missile strike on Israel and intensifies its operations against Hezbollah, US President Joe Biden has urged Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu to minimize harm to civilians in Lebanon.
Well, the leaders held a phone call that lasted for about 30-odd minutes.
And the work of your entire administration to support us. The Israeli people were deeply moved by the emotion that...
This even as US President Joe Biden reaffirmed Israel's right to defend itself. This call was their first in nearly 2 months, and it came amid mounting pressure from Washington for Israel to not strike Iran's oil or nuclear facilities.
But Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant has meanwhile promised that an Israeli strike against Iran will be lethal, precise and surprising. Gallant was due to discuss Israel's response in Washington on Wednesday before the last-minute postponement of his visit by Netanyahu. After the Biden-Netanyahu call ended, Gallant issued a video statement describing Iran's October 1st missile attack as a failure. The Defense Minister of Israel warned whoever attacks Israel will be hurt and will pay a price.
עכשיו אתם ראיתם את ההתקפות.
Now you've seen the attacks. The Iranians attacked us a short while ago. These attacks were aggressive, but they failed because they weren't accurate attacks. Just as we have been doing until now in the war on all other fronts. Whoever attacks us will be hurt and will pay a price. Our attack will be deadly, precise, and above all surprising. They will not understand what happened and how it happened. They will see the results.
As repeated threats reinforce fears that Israel and Hezbollah are on the verge of an all-out war, U.S. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller has said that implementation of UNSC Resolution 1701 is a priority for the United States of America, especially at a time of heightened tensions. The UN and diplomatic officials have all turned to the 2006 resolution in a bid to end the conflict in West Asia.
To be clear, when we say that we want to see 1701 implemented, that includes all the provisions of 1701. It doesn't just mean the provisions that apply to Hezbollah. It means Israel withdrawing south of the blue line as well. We want to see every provision implemented.
United Nations officials have warned that Lebanon is staring at a catastrophic humanitarian crisis as the number of internally displaced people has hit 600,000. Hezbollah has said its fighters are locked in clashes with Israeli troops in southern Lebanon, using rocket-propelled weapons to repel Israeli attempts to breach the border.
And well, for more on this, we are now being joined by Adrian Calmel from New York. He is a fellow at Arabian Peninsula Institute, Terrorism and Middle Eastern Scholar, and also author of forthcoming book on Hezbollah. Welcome to World DNA, Mr. Calmel. Now, Netanyahu and Biden, like we were talking about here, spoke for 30-odd minutes. The discussion majorly focused on Israel's attack on Iran. The White House says that the talks were direct and productive. How do you read that statement coming out of the White House? Do you think that Israel and U.S. has perhaps they've reached a common ground when it comes to attacking Iran?
Thank you for having me on the show, Raisha. Great question. I don't think they have reached a consensus, only because Israel needs to respond, and they need to respond forcefully. The last time the Islamic Republic launched this type of salvo, the only response from Israel was they took out an S-300 air defense system that was protecting Natan's nuclear facility. So the systems that were supposed to be defending that nuclear facility were destroyed before they even realized the Israelis had taken them out. So I thought that was a very clear message. I think Israel has a opportunity here where the war has shifted, where they were on the defensive on multiple fronts, probably for 7-8 months, trying to hold off Hezbollah. Now they have an opportunity here, and they see it. Gallant is saying it. They have to, one, the oil facilities and petrochemical facilities, that would be a primary target for the Israelis, because one way to cripple the Islamic Republic and their proxies is to cripple that oil supply that they gain, that generates revenue that they can pay off their proxies. And then there's the nuclear facilities as well. So here we are. Hezbollah is severely weakened. We've seen that. So the Islamic Republic is not in a very good place right now.
Mr. Calmel, shortly after that conversation between the two leaders, the defense minister of Israel, he said that Israel's attack against Iran would be deadly, precise, and above all, it's going to be surprising. We've seen Israel resort to certain asymmetrical tactics in the past, of course, nothing that they admitted to, but that was extremely deadly and it was extremely surprising. Do you reckon that Israel would perhaps resort to something similar like the pager blasts we saw earlier? And there have also been reports that someone was suggesting that the earlier president of the earlier leader in Iran was also killed due to that, which caused the helicopter crash. So there have been a lot of reports. Would you connect these dots and perhaps hint or think that that's the kind of attack that Israel is now planning for?
It's hard to say what Israel is planning for. I can say that they have that capacity. They've proven that during this war with the pager incident, and even before the war, they were basically running circles around the IRGC internal security apparatus with sabotage attempts and successful ones in Natanz, assassinations of nuclear scientists, etc. It's really difficult to say what they will do. I think it's going to be one, I want to stress the importance. It's going to be one to minimize civilian casualties. The Israelis understand that the Iranian people have been oppressed by this regime, and that's very important to understand. So I think, again, it comes back to really, if you look at the greatest threat, the existential threat, the way the Islamic Republic has been able to threaten Israel and its livelihood is one through Hezbollah, and then the looming nuclear threat. Now, if they can wipe out both those threats in a relatively short period of time, I think we've seen what's happened with Hezbollah. They have been severely degraded from it wasn't a decapitation strike. They went from the bottom up and they cleared the entire structure.
Mr. Calmer, talking about the phone conversation between Biden and Bibi, yet again, the U.S. president asserted Washington's ironclad support for Tel Aviv, and U.S. has also stepped up troop presence in the region. But all this while, Biden has also been urging for restraint in West Asia in a bid to avoid an all-out war. The paramount question now is that for how long will U.S. continue supporting Israel?
Well, I think we also have to remember that we're coming up to an election here. So we don't know which way this election is going to swing. It could go either way. If it goes a Harris-Walz way, I could see that support diminishing even further. If it goes to Trump and Vance, I would see that support become more ironclad there. So that's kind of the way I see the relationship right now. The U.S. has been very contradictory in their message. They've given the Islamic Republic, both Biden and Obama gave them a pathway to a nuclear weapon and said that they would use the military option if it looked like they were coming to that point. But now Biden's backpedaling on that, and the military option seems to be off the table when it comes to nuclear programs. So there's serious friction. I know the U.S. is upset about not being told about certain operations, but I can't blame the Israelis because the amount of leaks that are coming out of the administration in Washington, D.C. puts these type of operations at risk.
All right, Mr. Adrian Caramel, always a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for joining us on World DNA.
Thank you so much. Have a nice evening.
You too.
Well, as geopolitical tensions escalate, the upcoming BRICS summit under Russia's chairmanship promises to be critical for its members.
The 16th edition of the summit is to take place from the 22nd of October in Kazan. BRICS used to refer to Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa, but now the group expanded, and in January, of course, it now includes Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. So on one hand are China, Russia and Iran, which have expressed strong anti-Western positions, and on the other hand, members like Saudi Arabia, UAE, Egypt maintain a delicate balance between their Western partnerships and Russia.
Apart from the newly expanded BRICS, Cuba is among those countries who want to join the group of growing economies. The country's foreign minister wrote to the Russian President Vladimir Putin for the nation's incorporation into BRICS. The Caribbean country's bid to join the bloc comes shortly after Azerbaijan confirmed that it is also pushing for BRICS membership following a meeting between Putin and the Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev.
Meanwhile, Sri Lanka is also planning to submit an official request to join the BRICS grouping. Even though Sri Lanka's newly elected president, Anura Kumara Dissanayake, will not be able to attend the summit, its Ministry of Foreign Affairs will participate at the official level. Membership of BRICS is invitation only, and multiple countries were given the chance to join at the start of this year. BRICS was founded in 2009 to foster closer ties among Russia, China, India and Brazil. and now comprises 9 members with 45% of the world's population. The BRICS nations account for up to 28% of global exports. The combined GDP of the member states exceeds that of the G7 nations. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has warned that a longer war in Ukraine will allow Russia to exhaust Kiev as he met Balkan leaders in Croatia.
And all this in a bid to secure further military aid as Ukraine battles Russia.
If the
war lasts for a very long time, in fact, this allows Putin to exhaust Ukraine as much as possible. Of course, he will also exhaust his own population, but he's not worried about that. And in any case, the longer the war goes on, the less a society will pay attention to internal issues, to the economy, etc.
Addressing the third Ukraine Southeast Europe summit in the Croatian city, the Ukrainian leader said that the current state of play on the battlefield has created an opportunity for steps to end the war by 2025. However, he did not spell out how and why he perceived such an opportunity.
Zelensky will meet NATO General Secretary Mark Rutte and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer in London later in the day, as he is keen for the West to deliver long-range missiles and other support to try to change the balance on the battlefield.
On Friday, Zelensky will meet Pope Francis. He is also expected to meet the leaders of France, Italy and Germany this week. Well, on the war front, Russia's defense ministry said it has retaken 2 villages in its Kursk region that were captured by Ukraine in a surprise offensive. The ministry also released a video that it said showed the capture of one of these villages, including drone footage of a street with houses lacking roofs and windows.
Furthermore, Russian ballistic missile attack in the southern Odessa region killed 6 people and injured 8 on Wednesday. The attack is the third in the region in the past 4 days. Ukrainian officials said a Panama-flagged container ship sustained damage in the attack. On the other hand, Ukraine's military said its forces on Wednesday struck a base in southern Russia's Krasnodar region that stored around 400 Shahid drones. The statement said a direct hit was made on the target in an operation carried out jointly by naval forces and the SBU intelligence service. Russia has made no official comment on the Ukrainian report.
In other global news, the tensions in the South China Sea have been escalating. Taiwan has now seized Chinese fishing boat in sensitive waters.
Taiwan's Coast Guard claims it has seized a Chinese fishing boat and detains its 9 crew members after the vessel was found inside the island's restricted waters. And these are the images released by the Coast Guard, which show its ship pursuing the fishing boat and then its personnel boarding the vessel, where they found about 1 ton of fish.
Well, this incident took place near Kimi Island. It is a part of the Taipei-administered Panhu Archipelago in the sensitive strait separating Taiwan and China. Well, China claims that self-ruled Taiwan as a part of its own territory, and ties between the two have worsened in recent years. Taiwanese and Chinese Coast Guard boats, they regularly patrol the Taiwan Strait. A series of incidents involving boats from both the sides have fueled tensions across the narrow waterway.
When the Coast Guard ship approached for inspection, the Chinese boat sped away to evade the inspection. The Coast Guard personnel immediately pursued and stopped the boat. However, the Chinese boat's pump was damaged and leaking, so the Coast Guard assisted it with the pumps and sealed the water leakage.
The Chinese fishing boat has been towed to Kimi port and an investigation is underway. Taiwan's Navy Commander Admiral Tang Hua claims China has been enhancing its military presence around Taiwan. The incident comes as Taiwan accuses China of using anaconda strategy to squeeze the island nation. China's anaconda strategy against Taiwan reportedly involves a mix of military maneuvers, psychological tactics, and cyber warfare to eventually weaken Taiwan's defenses. The ultimate goal appears to be to force Taiwan into submission without engaging in a full-scale invasion. South China Sea tensions have only been mounting. There have been several altercations which have taken place. There have been encounters directly with the Coast Guard on both sides.
Right, Shivan. And the latest, Taiwan has seized Chinese fishing boat in the sensitive waters. And this happened in a sensitive strait that is between Taiwan and China. Taiwan's Coast Guard claims that it has seized a Chinese fishing boat and also detained its 9 crew members.
It's China's expansionist ideology which has caused several problems in that entire region. It's not just Taiwan with a nation with which they have wars. Of course, for China, Taiwan is a part of China anyway, but as far as the other nations are concerned, the ASEAN nations, whether it's Vietnam, whether it's Malaysia, whether it's Philippines, there have been tensions with all nations in the contested South China Sea waters.
In the past few months, we have been seeing tensions escalate in the South China Sea, especially between Taiwan and China. And this latest incident that we're talking about here, it comes as Taiwan accuses China of using a new strategy. It's called the anaconda strategy, which tries to squeeze the island nation. As we know that China proclaims Taiwan as a part of its own territory and has been saying that it will be a part of China even if China has to use force.
In the latest, Taiwan's Coast Guard claims it has seized a Chinese fishing boat, and these are visuals that you see on the screen in front. This is a fishing boat that they've seized and detains its 9 crew members after the vessel was found inside the island's restricted waters. These are images, these are visuals released by the Coast Guard, which shows its ship pursuing the fishing boat and its personnel boarding the vessel, where they found about 1 ton of fish.
I'd also like to add here that the Taiwanese President Lai Ching-te recently said that China has been using every possible means to cause chaos. And this also at a time as China has already called President Lai Ching-te a separatist. All right, Shivan, now with the US presidential polls less than a month away, our colleague Jyotsna Kumar gets you the latest.
Absolutely. Now, less than 1 month to go for the U.S. presidential elections. Let's have a look at some of the major developments in the race to the White House. Now, we start with Donald Trump and Kamala Harris that have faced off just once on the debate stage in September, and despite suggestions by multiple will not meet again before the vote. Now, Trump has ruled out a second U.S. presidential debate hours after Fox News offered to host a candidate showdown later this month. Trump said that it was very late in the process, adding that there will be no rematch. Harris and had previously challenged Trump to a debate hosted by CNN on October 23rd, but the former president declined. Campaigning in the crucial battleground of Pennsylvania, Trump vowed to unleash American energy and drill baby drill, wooing blue-collar voters in Scranton, the former coal mining hub where President Joe Biden grew up. The Republican ex-president assailed his Democratic election rival Kamala Harris on drilling for oil and accused her of forcing the closure of dozens of power stations. Trump said, "One day, I will tell Pennsylvania energy workers to frack, 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 and drill, drill, drill." Democratic Vice President nominee in Minnesota Governor Tim Walz participated in veterans and military families on the campaign trail. The event in Chandler, Arizona was also attended by Jim McCain, who is the son of former Republican Arizona Senator John McCain. Early in-person voting is beginning in Arizona on Wednesday. Talking about Hurricane Milton hitting Florida, Walz called unifying across party lines in the face of natural disasters critical.
All of the governors are working together. I serve as the co-chair of the Council of Governors. It's 10 governors, 5 Republicans, 5 Democrats, appointed by the president.
Now, hundreds of apparent pro-Russian bot accounts on social media platform X are pushing U.S. election misinformation. A research group claimed that these bots were amplifying false narratives about Democratic contender Kamala Harris, calling them sleeper agents for having evaded detection for years. The findings by the Washington-based American Sunlight Project demonstrate how bot-like activity plagues social media X despite pledges by billionaire owner Elon Musk to crack down on the digital manipulation. And that's all for today. Now back to you guys.
In what many are calling the storm of the century, Hurricane Milton has now made landfall off Florida's coast,
unleashing tornadoes and threatening a wide area of the state with life-threatening floods. Well, it has made landfall near Siesta Key as Category 3 hurricane. This comes just 2 weeks after Hurricane Helene battered the state, leading to close to 2 million people to evacuate from the region.
Prior to making landfall, it was growing in size as it approached Florida. Milton slightly weakened to a Category 3 hurricane, the third highest level.
Well, it's now time for a quick short break.
Don't go anywhere. Come right back. This is World DNA. Lots more on the other side.
Mozambique holds a general election on the 9th of October, but voters fear they will be deprived of a fair and democratic electoral process. The Southern African nation and is one of the poorest countries in the world, despite its vast natural gas deposits. Kenya's Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua apologizes to his boss, President William Ruto, and citizens after lawmakers launched an impeachment proceeding.
If you insubordinate the state, you are not worth being a state officer.
And Ethiopia's capital hosted thousands at the Irecha Heritage Festival on one end of Addis Ababa, and on the other, thousands celebrated an annual religious festival marked by the lighting of bonfires, according to the beliefs of the local Orthodox Christian faithful. That's this week on World of Africa, at these times on WION, World is One.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
WION brings you a special business talk show where we bring forth the stories of business leaders.
From breakthrough technologies to visionary leadership, we will unlock the trends, the tactics, and dive into the minds of the industry's most influential leaders.
WION brings you this special series to uncover what drives them in a candid talk show, WION Business Masters.
Everyone loves a contest. But sport isn't just about victory and defeat. When the GOATs in sport speak, you hear it first on WION.
You have to play good cricket over a period of time.
I should push myself right out of the damn tournament.
We go beyond the stats. Our stories are quoted the world over.
At WION, sport is part of our DNA. Come, join us on this journey. Weekdays 6:30 p.m. IST, 1 p.m. GMT.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching World DNA with Reisha and I'm Shivan. Lots to discuss on this side of the show as well. Let's get started with the headlines.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi embarks on two-day visit to Laos to attend the 21st ASEAN, India and the 19th East Asia Summits.
Taiwan reports more Chinese warplanes near its coast ahead of a key address by President Lai Ching-te, as a Taiwanese official accuses Beijing of using every possible means to cause chaos.
Hurricane Milton slams the U.S. state of Florida as an extremely dangerous Category 3 storm, triggering extreme winds and flash floods.
US President Joe Biden tells Israeli Prime Minister to minimize harm to civilians in Lebanon during a widely anticipated phone call. White House says Israel must avoid any Gaza-like military action in Lebanon.
Republican presidential contestant Donald Trump rules out second presidential debate with Democratic nominee Kamala Harris.
Indian industrialist and philanthropist Ratan Tata dies aged 86. The chairman emeritus of Tata Group died after being admitted to intensive care for the past few days. Condolences pour in from India's Prime Minister and other top leaders and others around the world.
Greece international George Baldock found dead in the swimming pool of his house in Athens. The cause of death remains unknown at the moment.
Ratan Tata, the visionary chairman emeritus of the Tata Group, has died at the age of 86.
A titan of Indian industry and a renowned philanthropist, Ratan Tata's legacy will forever be etched in the archives of Indian business history.
A statement released by N. Chandrasekaran, Chairman Tata Sons, late night on Tuesday read, "It is with a profound sense of loss that we bid farewell to Mr. Ratan Tata, a truly uncommon leader whose immeasurable contributions have shaped not only the Tata Group but also the very fabric of our nation."
Born into a family with deep industrial roots, Tata's journey began on the shop floor of Tata Steel. His ascent to the helm of the conglomerate in 1991 was marked by a series of strategic decisions that transformed the Tata Group into a global powerhouse. Under his leadership, the group expanded into diverse sectors, acquiring iconic brands like Jaguar Land Rover.
Ratan Tata's most significant contributions to the Tata Group were his unwavering commitments to innovation. He oversaw the launch of the groundbreaking products like the Indica, India's first indigenously designed car, and the Tata Nano, the world's cheapest car. Tata's strategic vision also led to the successful IPO of Tata Consultancy Services, which became the largest information technology services company in India. Ratan Tata's leadership was instrumental in propelling the Tata Group to a valuation of over $100 billion.
His ability to identify growth opportunities and execute on his own vision transformed the company into a global leader. 2/3 of its revenue now comes from overseas markets. Beyond the balance sheets, Ratan Tata is widely acclaimed for his philanthropy. Approximately 65% of the revenue made by the Tata Group are allocated to all the charitable trusts that support rural growth, healthcare and education in India.
Prime Minister Modi also took to social media to express his pain over the unfortunate news. Countless other politicians, business leaders, actors, they've all expressed grief over the passing of a visionary as revered as Ratan Tata. His business empire is likely to be taken over by his half-brother Noel Tata and his kin. Noel has 3 children, Maya, Neville and Leah Tata.
And to talk more on Ratan Tata's legacy, we're now being joined by Professor Vikas Singh, economist and author. Welcome to the show, Professor Singh. Now, Ratan Tata has perhaps left an indelible mark on India's business landscape and the nation as a whole. A profound loss for India, indeed, Professor Singh. Talk to us about how Ratan Tata's legacy will shape Indian businesses and beyond.
I think it's well known that not only was he a visionary leader, but he was also a person who invested a lot of time and money in charitable causes. I want to talk about two specific cases of what Ratan Tata has really left behind for the other business leaders to follow. I think the most important thing is that while we call him a visionary, we should also not forget that he was a strategist in many sense. His investment over the last 10 years in new businesses, his investment in markets unexplored by Indian businesses, for example, in the UK, in South Asia, in South America and other countries, is a legacy to what a visionary leader can think of. He dreamt big, but his dream of making it big was always centered around people, or not only on profit. For example, when you look at businesses around him, he never went into businesses which are monopolies. His focus was on creating business that not only help the economy, but also help the nation. His investment in the UK for the chorus, for the steel business, as well as for the automobile business, is a testimony to what he has been able to do. He faced setbacks, but he never withered. He went on investing in businesses which he believed in the long term.
Yes.
Particularly his business acumen is evident in the new businesses that he's brought. For example, the technology-led businesses like the new age businesses, the business that he set up for in the retail business. These are all testimony to the fact that he not only dreamt big, but he also focused on contemporary business which have a future for the group.
Professor Singh, I believe you've met Mr. Tata personally, and it has happened on a few occasions. If you can tell us, what was your first impression like when you met him, or as and when you met him? Something peculiar that you noticed, or something that you took away from that brief meeting or longer meeting, whatever. If you can tell us what that meeting was like.
Yeah, I did a TED talk on universal basic income, and then 3-4 months after the TED talk, I got a call from his office that he wanted to talk to me. So he invited a group of about 12-13 people who were all TED speakers of that year. And the call came from his office, but he personally got on the line and he invited me to meet him. There were 12 of us, and the most amazing thing was that he not only asked about what the talk was about, but he inquired. He spent a substantial amount of time understanding why universal basic income is a good idea. He gave me feedback. He says, is it possible? The first question that he asked, is it implementable? I said, it's implementable if the political will is there. He said, is there money? Does the Indian government have the money to implement it? I said, that's something that we need to talk about. His suggestion was that, why don't we go halfway? Instead of trying to, so his whole approach was what can be done to make it work. He was not an idealist in that sense.
And man of action,
he was
of
not
course,
an
what can
idealist
be
in
done
that
next.
sense.
And a personal interest.
What can be done, how it can be done.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The second time I met him was when I went to judge a startup at a startup conclave, and he was there. He was full of energy at the age of 83, 84.
Oh, that was recent.
And I wondered. That was recently, and I wondered, and I said that I'm so happy that you are mentoring these people and you are guiding them. And he said something that will always remain with me. He said that, Professor, I'm not here to mentor. This is reverse mentoring. I'm the one who's getting mentored by these young people. Professor. They have ideas.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's I'm sure people around the world would have so many stories of their interactions and how he's influenced them. Even if they've never met him, his quotes were so influential for so many people. Thank you so much for joining us, Professor Vikas Singh. Of course, this is a legacy which will live on.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Moving on, the slow pace of Beijing's stimulus efforts and disappointing holiday spending figures, that has caused traders to lose faith in the Chinese stock market.
Well, this led to the worst decline in onshore Chinese stocks in almost 4 years. The CSI 300 index plunged 7.1%, erasing its advance from Tuesday when mainland markets reopened after the Golden Week holidays. The gauge paired declines after the Ministry of Finance said it would hold a briefing on fiscal policy. However, selling pressure resumed to hand the measure its first loss in 11 days.
An index of Chinese stocks listed in Hong Kong fell further after sliding more than 10% on Tuesday. Meanwhile, the Golden Dragon Index of US-listed Chinese stocks declined 3.7%. Chinese stocks have been on a slow path recently thanks to a slew of stimulus-related policy announcements. But Tuesday's crucial policy meeting, that failed to yield any new big initiatives, dampening investors' hopes for a stimulus-driven stock rally. Beijing has to provide actual funding to support its spending promises. Others cautioned that the rally had gone too far, too fast after benchmark indexes surged more than 30% in a matter of days.
Stock investors have looked for greater fiscal spending to arrest a slowdown. Fall in demand threatens to put the country's 2024 target of about 5% growth out of reach. China said it would hold a briefing on fiscal policy on Saturday as investors look for additional measures to stimulate the world's number 2 economy. Finance Minister Landfall will introduce moves to strengthen fiscal policy to shore up growth and answer questions from reporters. Chinese Premier Li Qiang on Tuesday vowed to listen to the voice of the market when formulating economic policies. A war in Ukraine, a trade war between China and several countries, and Donald Trump's threat of sweeping tariff increases. Well, they all raise the prospect of an accelerated rupture of international ties.
That too, Shivan, for the global economy, the consequences would be major and negative. And next report telling you more.
Bloomberg Economics has modelled global scenarios as higher fences for trade will mean more debt and slower growth. The possible outcomes are a globalization scenario in which global cooperation gradually improves. A crucial turning point will be the US election on the 5th of November. Foreign policy is an area where Vice President Kamala Harris is still working on the details, but sticking to allies from Western Europe to East Asia, maintaining sanctions on trade with China and supporting Ukraine indefinitely seem like good bets. Donald Trump pledges to impose tariffs on Chinese imports and up to 20% tariffs on others. Countries that fail to pay up would have the US security guarantee revoked. The removal of illegal immigrants is also a key tenet of the Trump agenda. A second Cold War scenario finds the world divided into rival US and China-led blocs. Tariffs between the blocs rise from an average of about 8% to almost 40%. And this is equivalent to the level imposed by China on the rest of the world back in 1992. Migration between blocs comes to a halt. Investors pull funds from rivals. Global defense spending rises from an average of 2.3% of GDP in 2023 to 4% by 2035. The economic impact of such a scenario will be far-reaching. The end of trade and capital flows impedes emerging markets' access to advanced technology, slowing productivity gains. Countries in the China bloc will take a significant hit. Ending migration flows will impede labor supply. And productivity growth in advanced economies in the US bloc too. Global GDP growth in the decade ahead would slow to 2.9%. In China, debt would swell to 118% of annual output. So overall, the rising geopolitical risks are expected to weigh significantly on the global economy. Business Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Let's now see what's making news in the world of technology. Well, people who use Discord in Turkey will no longer be able to access the instant messaging platform. The Turkish government has blocked access to Discord after the messaging platform refused to share information demanded by the country's top court. As per reports, the court decided to block Discord due to suspected child sexual abuse which were being committed by some Discord users on the platform. The block comes after the murder of 2 women by a 19-year-old man in Istanbul earlier this month. Well, content on social media showed some Discord users praising the killing. Abdul Kadir Urloglu, Turkey's Transport and Infrastructure Minister, said it was difficult for the officials to monitor and intervene whenever illegal or criminal content was being shared on the platform.
Operators of rental e-scooters in Spain's Madrid have until October 25th to remove all their mobility devices from the city streets. The announcement comes after a huge public outcry against reckless driving and chaotic parking by their users. Madrid's mayor's office said the 3 foreign operators, Lime, Dot and Tear Mobility, had failed to implement limits on their clients' circulation or control their parking to regain the licenses. The e-scooter sharing system has been under fire globally, mostly due to reckless driving by users on streets, as well as sidewalks and haphazard parking that often leaves public spaces cluttered. Madrid follows in the footsteps of Paris, which last year banned e-scooter rentals following a public consultation.
Last month, on the 20th of September, data of over 31 million Star Health customers were hacked. Star Health is one of India's leading health insurance provider. About 2 weeks after the data hack, the hacker identified as Shenzhen. He was selling the stolen data on a website for $150,000. The hacker claims to have access to the data of over 31 million customers. The leaked data includes customers' PAN card details, address, phone numbers, and other personal information. In a shocking twist, the hacker claims to have accessed customer data through Star Health's Chief Information Security Officer, Amarjeet Khanuja. The hacker was alleged that Khurana sold the data to him. However, Khurana later tried to change the terms of the deal.
World champions India might not be at full strength, but they have sealed a 16th successive T20I series victory at home after a comprehensive 86-run win over Bangladesh in New Delhi.
Well, Nitesh Reddy delivered a remarkable all-round display in just his